All right, guys, we're back with comedian, online personality, entrepreneur Nicole Arbour. And she is up in Canada, where she's originally from. And she was actually just telling us in a break there about how you can't even leave. So, see, I think people don't really get this. You can't, because technically, travel from Canada to the United States is international. You know, you do need a, quote, passport for this, even though nothing seems different and no one really seems to, care. But you can't do that right now. You guys are not allowed really just normal travel back and forth.
No, it's very strongly advised against. There's travel warnings every day. I check every single day, and it still is 100% advised against going to America right now. So at least until June 14th, I am in Canada. And I don't even know if I'm going back to LA. Now, after what's going on there, I don't know why I would.
Wait a second. I detected a little, because you have this sometimes with like European countries will put out these advisories like, there are too many shootings in America. Like, be careful when you travel. And one of you go sightseeing in Omaha. You'll be just fine, everybody. Like, stop with this craziness. It's like the whole,
exactly.
Like,
wear a vest, whatever.
Is it the case that now are Canadians afraid of coming to America because of the headlines and the cases here? Is that kind of what's being put on you guys?
You're not helping. The news is not helping at all. And frankly, I think we're more scared of your politicians at this point because we're seeing some absolute morons. And I'm not talking about the president. I'm talking about absolute morons that are standing at podiums, giving talks that make no sense. Nancy Pelosi, AOC, just people that are obviously stupid human beings trying to tell us what to do. And you got to break it down to, man, remember that politicians aren't necessarily the smartest of the bunch going and, doing this and helping the people. And now that we have a pandemic, why am I listening to this moron?
I mean,
Elon Musk is back to work. Dana White's back to work. Those dudes are smart. They run businesses. They innovate. They make things. They make money. I think we got to listen to them. And the politicians are terrifying.
Yeah, well, the public health experts, people like to conflate public health expert with actual scientists / practicing medical personnel or world-class level medical mind. In LA, you have a person with a PhD in public welfare making the real calls about how quickly they open. Well, that makes you feel better, right?
Adorable. That's an adorable little piece of paper, isn't it?
And I don't even know that was a degree you could get. And in New York, you have somebody who, granted, was a pediatrician 20 some odd years ago, and now has really specialized in health equity, which I think is a fascinating little social justice area of study. So that's been her realm.
Basket weaving.
Yeah, it seems to me that people should really question why we're all listening, and especially because they've also gotten things horrifically wrong. But before we let you get back to all the maple syrup drinking and ice hockey, let's
I'm literally
transition.
Drinking maple syrup water right now.
There we go. Yes, she is. Talk to me a little bit about, you saw this tweet that I was kind of bored and watching a movie, and I was like, the 5 best sports movies. And people were like, Buck, you're a savage. This is a terrible list.
I wouldn't call you a savage. You're trash, man. You're trash.
Yeah, and people.
I mean it with love. We didn't have Mighty Ducks. I need some cool runnings. See me as a girl. Some Bring It On would be awesome. It is still harder to become an NBA cheerleader than it is to become an American politician. Just saying. It's a harder process.
Wait, but we got to get you on the best sports movie. Our producer says it's Miracle. Another producer says that it's, I think producer Nick, did you say Bull Durham? I think he said Bull Durham. What is the best
that's good.
Best sports movie of all time, Nicole?
Remember the Titans.
Really?
I know you're going to make fun of me. I'm a cheerleader. I've been a cheerleader my whole life. There's that moment where it's like, we are the Titans. You play that in the morning and try to not be hyped up. Exactly.
I'm going to add this. My producer Mark was so sure that I would love Miracle that I actually watched it last night because I got also so trashed in that thread. Although people agreed with me on Rocky and Rudy. Those were the safe choices. It was the rest of my stuff that everyone's like, you're the worst. So I watched Miracle. Miracle is very good. But I've never seen Remember the Titans. And I actually do. I think Denzel Washington is one of the finest actors of his generation. So there's that. And he's not Canadian,
just saying,
unlike a lot of our great actors.
You're welcome. But also, don't forget about Cool Runnings. Feel the rhythm. It's really good.
Haven't seen that one either. But Nicole Arbour, everybody, follow her. I know. It's like I've been living in a box all this time. It's like I've been on lockdown my whole life. Nicole Arbor, everybody, check her out on social media. She's on Twitter. She's on Facebook. She's all over the place. She's a comedian. Nicole, come back and hang out with us again soon and stay safe up there.
I'm down.
Thanks, you.
Bye, Buck. Bye, America.
Let me just say that what the president is saying about China is interesting. It's an interesting diversion. Right now, our focus should be on meeting the needs of the American people. I've even said putting aside how we got here in our own country, because we should be using our energy on how we go forward than making judgments about what his administration did or didn't do. We're talking about going forward. There'll be plenty of time for after-action review. And apart from what we do, there'll be scientists and others who will be tracing, rightfully, not only rightfully so, it's urgent and needed for them to trace the origins of such a pandemic scientifically, but not politically. And again, let's keep our focus on meeting the needs of the American people, opening our economy.
Pelosi says it's a diversion for Trump to point the finger at China for the start of and the suppression of initial information and those critical weeks and months that happened because of the Chinese Communist Party. It's a diversion, she says. Meanwhile, Governor Cuomo here in New York keeps referring to the Wuhan coronavirus as a European virus. He does this repeatedly. Why are these people running cover for China, or what is at play here, and what should we be doing about the Chinese Communist Party right now? To answer those questions, we are joined by our friend Jack Prosobiec of One America News Network. He's also a former naval intelligence officer. Mr. Prosobiec, good to have you, sir.
Mr. Sexton, it's great to be here.
All right, man, let's first start with a diversion, Pelosi says, to point the finger of blame at China. Do we have any doubts that the Chinese Communist Party is wasn't just derelict in its duty, but was officially and clearly lying, dishonest in what they showed the world?
Yeah, I mean, the Chinese followed the old Soviet playbook when it came to Chernobyl, right? When something happens, when something goes wrong, instead of letting the world know, instead of getting the information out, instead of letting transparency run its course so that you can take precautionary measures as soon as possible. And I know it's been said it again and again, but we apparently have to keep saying it because Pelosi is out here. You know, she used to be good on the China issue, but not so much anymore. What they were doing was they originally in Wuhan, they were locking up dissenters. They were locking up doctors who were trying to raise the alarm, raise awareness about this thing. And furthermore, they even went forward with big gala dinners in downtown Wuhan after they already knew this thing was circulating throughout the country. This is very similar to what happened in Chernobyl, where the Soviet government allowed Victory Day. That's sort of the big Russian, where the missile parades and the tanks are going through, and everybody. And it's not just in Moscow; it's every city. So across Ukraine and Belarus, which are closer to where the actual Chernobyl incident took place, everybody's outside, they're celebrating, they're getting hit with the aftermath, they're getting hit with the fallout of Chernobyl. This is the exact same playbook that was followed in Wuhan by the Chinese Communist Party. It got to the point, and I'm, as a Mandarin linguist, I'm reading a lot of this stuff on Chinese social media because they're tweeting about it, or it's got something called Weibo, sort of a Twitter clone, and they're posting these things faster than the communist censors can take them down. It's spreading like wildfire. And so it got to a point where they tried to get the doctors to sign these self-incrimination statements. This is something that harkens back to the days of the Cultural Revolution under Chairman Mao. You know, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry that I've spread rumors against the country. I'm so sorry that I took a stance that was against the revolution. And even, by the way, even being considered on the right, the word rightist in China in those days, and even really today, is considered an insult. It's almost like a crime to even be on the right side of the political spectrum. So if you're a rightist, you know, you have to apologize and you know, self-flagellate yourself in public. And so what happened here was not only did this thing spread throughout China, but then even after the lockdowns took place within the city of Wuhan, they were still allowing international flights to be conducted for Chinese tourists and travelers that were going out of China to other countries. And nobody has really been able to provide a good answer for why the Chinese government allowed that to happen when they already knew they had a problem. And we're starting to get indications that they knew they had a problem as far back as November in terms of this thing. Also, German intelligence, BND, is out there in Der Spiegel, massive scoop by them, saying that at one point Xi Jinping called Dr. Tedros of the WHO to ask him to play down the reports of human-to-human transmission. This is back in January. So if we can go with that German intelligence report, we're going with everything that we obviously know that took place publicly. There's no question that this thing would have been prevented if the countries of the world, if our international systems had had that information from the start. That is at the feet of the Chinese Communist Party. That is at the feet of Xi Jinping.
We're speaking to Jack Prosobiec of One America News Network. He is a Mandarin linguist and was a naval intelligence officer. You know, there's new data. This just came out today from the New York Post. Well, not the Commie Post, the New York Post. Leaked data suggests that China may have 640,000 coronavirus cases instead of the claimed 80,000. Does that sound about right to you, Jack, based on how much dishonesty and dissembling we've seen from the Chinese Communist Party?
Well, we know the numbers out of China are false, and the issue is when we're talking about how this thing spreads, we know it's terribly contagious. We know it's very quick, and we know that it spreads quickly in dense cities. So you're not going to find denser cities anywhere in the world than in China, and certainly Wuhan is an extremely dense city. That being said, even at a population that's between 10 to 15 million, that isn't even one of the largest cities in China. That's actually what they would consider sort of a second tier or mid-tier city, not even in the realm of Beijing or Shanghai, which are both 20 plus million people. That's larger than many U.S. states, to put it in perspective. So the idea that they had less deaths it's a joke. It's a complete farce. And the problem that the Communist Party has on their hands, and that Xi Jinping and his cult of personality, which is backfiring on him, he's really the first Chinese chairman of the PLA, or excuse me, of the CCP, to really institute a cult of personality since the days of Chairman Mao. The families of the Chinese people, the Lao Baixing, the old 100 names, sort of the Chinese, the working class folks, they know who they've lost, right? They know that if they've lost mom, they've lost dad, grandma, grandpa, and honoring your elders is still very, very big in Chinese traditional culture. I mean, they still do something called Tomb Sweeping Day every year, where you go out, you clean up the cemetery, you put garlands on them. It's not quite like the Day of the Dead in Mexico, but it's still a really big deal. And the idea that you're supposed to be respecting your ancestors, respecting your elders, and the fact that the government is lying about that is definitely going to stick in the craw, I think, of a lot of the Chinese people that were obviously the first victims of this thing.
Speaking of Jack Prosobiec of One America News Network, Jack, do you think that we are now on a different trajectory of U.S.-China relations, that this momentum will take us to another place and, regardless of party, may be somewhat irreversible? Or do you think that the Democrats, if they were to take over from Trump, will take a very different approach to China, given what's happened with this virus?
Well, you're already starting to see the decoupling. You're seeing that with the cuts to licenses for Huawei, which is, of course, the Chinese, it's the telecommunications company, but it also has direct ties to the Chinese military. They can use it to piggyback for spying. Just yesterday, and sort of an interesting indicator when we talk about the politics of it, as you mentioned, the college Republicans and college Democrats released a joint statement condemning the Confucius Institutes across U.S. campuses. And Confucius Institutes, people don't realize this. They say, oh, that's like a right-wing thing. Those aren't that big of a deal. People don't realize how many of our large institutions, not just here in the United States, but the UK, Australia, have been taking money directly from the Chinese regime. They've been setting up these things called Confucius Institutes, and they're soft power institutes. They're also, I'm sure you know about the espionage operations that are run through there in conjunction with the consulates and the Chinese overseas students and travelers. And so to see both parties, even, certainly at a lower level, it's the college Republicans, Democrats, not the RNC and DNC, but to work together and put out a statement like that, I think is really telling for where we're going and definitely what the feeling is, at least in the base of each party.
We can switch gears for a second here, Jack. I see in the background, as we're doing this hit over Skype as well as radio, is that an Agent Poso? Is that an Agent Poso comic?
Well, yes, it is, Buck. As a matter of fact, so a couple months ago, I guess about a year ago at this point, a bunch of graphic novel designers, people who had sort of who were conservative and so weren't getting as much work from Marvel and DC and all the sort of Hollywood associated comics houses, came to me, and they've been doing a series of sort of conservative pro-Trump graphic novels. And one of the ones they did last year was called Trump Space Force. And this thing just did absolute gangbusters. You know, they raised a ton of money online. They produced the whole thing. They put it together. And then they came to me and they said, Jack, we want to do a graphic novel about your life. And I'm like, my life? Seriously? And they said, yeah. We think, the fact that you're an Intel guy, you've got this family, you're sort of doing stuff online. We think it'd be great. And, I've always been a comics fan growing up. And I said, all right, if you want to. The guy is actually that is putting the thing together is Chuck Dixon. So, even if people don't know everything about the nerdy world of comics, you might remember Bane from the Batman series. You remember Bane, right? From Tom Hardy played him in the movie. This is the guy that actually created the character of Bane. He also created the Birds of Prey series, which they just made into a movie with Margot Robbie. And now, for some insane reason, he's making a graphic novel out of me. Which is annoying, though, because we've got the entire thing produced. All of the artwork is just about finished. But I, in my infinite wisdom, said, I want the whole thing to be made by Americans and made in America. So I wanted to use an American printer. And Buck, guess where I got my printers, or at least where I signed the contract?
I don't know.
Virginia.
Why is that?
My entire line right now, I've sold several hundred copies of this thing already, but I can't print them because Governor Northam is not allowing
the
printing
shutdown
presses to run other than it had, I think they're doing, I called the guy up the other day, said we're doing medical pamphlets, we do, so you've got coronavirus, and anything else he can do just to stay in business, but every single other order has been put on backlog because of the governor of Virginia and his response to this outbreak.
I wrote a draft of a book, Jack, on socialism in America, and it's gonna be an ebook that we're gonna release, I think, in the next month or so, just because of the same thing with printers. It's thrown everything off now, and everything's on back order and backlog, and they're prioritizing and all kinds of stuff. But let me just say, that's really cool. I mean, I called Jack Poso. And I didn't even realize there was a Poso comic book.
Yeah, we're doing it, and that's I'll turn it a little bit. Oh, wait, it's the other way.
Yeah.
It's so that's my wife, and then my son is on her back, and he's got a little he's got his nods on, his night vision, and a little scope there, and then a big polluted Shanghai in the sky. So that has to do with the plot. I don't want to give away too many details, but that has to do with the plot. Big polluted Shanghai.
Well,
it's set in the future, by the way. The whole thing is set in the future in, let's just say, a world where the socialists get the upper hand, and it's about 10, 15 years in the future.
Agent Poso, everybody, also known as Jack Prosobiec, in his daytime job where he works at One American News Network. But every good agent needs a cover, and Agent Poso's is airtight. Agent Poso, thanks for joining us, man. We appreciate it. Good to see you.
Appreciate it, Buck. Take care, man.
It's time for roll call.
I got to tell you, I'm a tiny bit not loving the final season here, or the most recent season. I haven't finished yet. I don't know if it's the last one of The Last Kingdom, but I think it should be the last season of The Last Kingdom because it's all sort of this. It's now just turned into the same show all the time. It's, I'm Uhtred. Why the Vikings, the Danes are coming, to attack me. And it's like the same show I loved it in the beginning. I loved the first 2, maybe 3 seasons, but now it's like the same thing every day. So I need to find a new thing. And it looks like I've gotten a lot of advice today about, man, there's a lot of sports movies I've never seen. Never seen Bull Durham. Never seen, I saw Miracle. Thank you, producer Mark. Never seen Slapshot. So
how have you never seen Remember the Titans?
Never seen Remember the Titans?
Oh, it's such a good movie.
Yeah. So really, I haven't seen very many sports movies, which is strange because I've seen so many movies, but I haven't seen very many sports movies.
Well, I mean, you haven't seen very many sports, to be fair.
Yeah, I don't watch a lot of professional sports. That's probably true. So, I mean, I love football and basketball. I grew up watching basketball. I also think basketball used to be a different game to some degree, in my defense. Now it's just like a lot of super athletes who are all 6'10" and can shoot 3-pointers, doing a lot of pick and rolls and 3-pointers.
Yeah, they don't play defense anymore. All they do
There's
is
no
shoot threes.
defense. Yeah. And I mean, you go back and it comes up a little bit in this Michael Jordan series. There used to be like real gritty in the paint rival. Like these guys were really working. I mean, it just felt like a different game, a lot more contact, a lot more, go into the hole and less, right now it's everyone. And look, they can hit them. So everyone's like, oh, it's amazing. But everybody's 7 feet tall practically and doing fadeaway 3-pointers and hitting them, which is amazing. But I don't know if it's that great of a product to watch.
Yeah, I agree. It's not as physical anymore. I think analytics kind of killed basketball. Not killed it, but changed basketball because everyone realized, 3 points is more than 2, so why wouldn't we shoot more threes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot. It's basically the NBA for me has turned into a 3-point shooting contest. And I'm like, I just don't find that interesting. So anyway. And also because it used to be I feel like it was more of a rare skill. Like if a 7-footer took a 3-point shot 15 years ago, everyone was like, whoa, buddy, like, what are you, like nobody, if Shaq tried to do that, he'd throw a basketball into the third tier of the stands and hit some old lady in the head, right? I mean, it just would never happen. Now these guys do it all the time.
Yes, the athleticism has gone up in the league and really in all sports. I think the players are more athletic now, but they don't play as physically.
Yeah, I think that's true too. And maybe it's also kind of an injury thing. Everyone's like, let's not, no one wants to catch an elbow to the face. You look at like the Pistons back in the day when they had guys like Bill Laimbeer. I mean, these dudes were brawlers. They were playing hockey without skates.
Oh, yeah.
Different time.
And Detroit has always been like that. I mean, they're the ones that got in the malice of the palace.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Oh, remember, everybody, go to bucksexton.com. We are posting stories now every day, and I really appreciate how much we've had folks get going to the site, and also it's a place where you can download and listen to the podcast. We're doing a lot more stuff with bucksexton.com. The site's had a total revamp, redo. It looks good now, seamless. You'll love it. bucksexton.com. Put it on your browser. Check in there. And I've already talked to our web team. In the next 2 weeks, I'm going to start writing a weekly column. It might even be more often than that, but an original column for bucksexton.com. So I've agreed to that. And obviously, I'll light it up in that column, as I tend to do. So make sure you bookmark bucksexton.com. Jake Buckman. Hey, brother, it's emblematic of the leftist tendencies to be hypocritical, disingenuous, and myopic. When Bro Cuomo implies that the push to reopen is racist, who does he think will be the ones who will bear the brunt of the economic downturn? There might be a much higher number of minorities at risk from the virus, but a much higher percentage of that population will be damaged by a recession. Jake, I think what you're saying by the numbers is accurate, meaning that people who are minorities are at a disproportionately high health risk from this. And that has to do with the comorbidities, right? You don't have a disproportionate number of minorities over the age of 65, but you do have a disproportionate number of minorities, predominantly Black and Latino minorities in this country, who are have additional health issues that this virus is unfortunately preying upon. Diabetes, hypertension, things like that. Now, obviously, all ethnicities, all groups of people have those same problems, but there's a disproportionate a disproportionate level of it in the Black and Latino community. But also, when you look at who has been really hurt by this from a financial perspective and who the recession has been just brutal on, it's people who are making less than $40,000 a year. They're the ones who have lost. I think the number, actually, I don't want to cite that because I might be wrong, but the number of people who have lost jobs who are making $40,000 a year or less is astronomical. And it's clear that's who's lost their jobs. It's people in the retail and service industries making $40K or less a year, and it's been really tough on them. And those jobs, I don't know when, no one knows when those jobs are coming back. So we have to remember that there's a real long-term systemic risk here too. Brandy, Buck, how do you think Bernie and all the rest of the Democratic candidates who have previously dropped out of the race feel about that decision now that the Flynn case has revealed Biden as one of the unmaskers? How long will this affect the presidential race? Brandy, I don't think it's going to affect it very long at all. Democrats are crazy on this thing. They think it's fine. They think that there's no problem doing that the Obama administration was taking legal steps and unmasking is totally normal. No issue here. That's what Democrats believe. So I don't think that they're going to walk away from this at all. I think if anything, they just are going to gaslight us all and largely ignore it. So, Bernie Sanders, you got to remember Bernie Sanders is, oh, wait, Producer Mark, can we play I can't let this go. Can we play the Joe Biden audio that I sent you? Do we have that one?
Which one?
The one where he's just a complete, he says 80,000 jobs lost or whatever. He completely messes the whole thing up.
I don't think we have that one, Buck. We have another ridiculous Biden clip, I think. If you'd like that one.
Let me play that one.
All right.
Well, I think they should vote their heart. And if they believe Tara Reid, they probably shouldn't vote for me. I wouldn't vote for me if I believed Tara Reid.
Biden is saying that she's a liar. No one ever seems to put it in those terms. That's what he's saying. She's lying. Look, if someone accused me of sexual assault and it was false, I would say that it's a lie, that the person is lying. I don't know why we have to dance around this, right? But it's because they've had to move away from the sensitivity of, believe all women. They've gone from believe all women to, actually, it's not that you have to believe all women. It's you have to believe women when a Republican is the one who has been accused of something. So that is a different circumstance than we were led to believe at the time. Let's go back into it here with Sheldon. Hey, Buck and Producer Mark. First off, Mark is correct about the Avengers movies. Love them. Really? You're going to be another vote for Producer Mark is right, huh? That's how we're going to go with this one?
I think 90% of our audience agrees with me on that.
I worry the investigation of the collusion hoax, FISA abuse, etc. will be extended until it's too late to demonstrate with indictments the corruption that was involved by the last administration, the DOJ, etc. Do you think this will happen in time? It will be like the never promised Senator Graham hearings. I got to say, Lindsey Graham is getting a lot of people are like, oh, really, Lindsey? I'm gonna hold their feet to the fire. Lindsey Graham's always saying this, and then there's no feet being held to any fire. But he goes on Hannity's show, or he goes on the biggest shows on Fox News, and he's always promising, I'm gonna get answers to that. He doesn't. It sounds good. I mean, the sound bites work, but when was the last time Lindsey Graham? Look, he's run out of. He had that great moment with Kavanaugh, and I still give him credit for it. But since then, I can't think of what Lindsey Graham has been particularly good on and been leading on. So I think enough is enough with this. We got to get him to actually do something. Oh, and Senator Burr has the FBI now seized. The FBI seized his phone. This is about the insider trading thing. You really don't want to be the senator that is expected to, or that is alleged to, I should say, alleged to have been engaged in insider trading on information about the pandemic that relied on secret government assessments, and you were selling a couple $1 million of stock. That's not going to go. That's not going to go well for you. Now, the case there against Senator Burr might be very difficult. Insider trader cases usually are. How do you differentiate between someone who just knows that bad things are coming because of what they're reading in the paper on the Wuhan coronavirus, and somebody who does that and also happens to be in these government briefings that are saying it's going to be worse? He could say, no, I just knew it was worse. Now, you might say, Buck, we're not idiots. Well, you got to get a jury to believe beyond a reasonable doubt that it wasn't reasonable for him to sell in advance of what certainly could have been a global pandemic. And he might say, oh, some of the government assessments were wrong and there were contrary government assessments. Insider trading cases, unless you got a wiretap of somebody who's an officer of the company saying, hey, here's what the earnings reports say before the earnings report comes out. I mean, unless you get someone, just nail them, right? Caught red-handed, very tough to make an insider trading case stick. That's why they don't bring that many of them. All right, now we got Noel writing in, or is it Noel? I can never tell. How do we know if it's a Noel or Noel?
I'm not sure.
I put this one on you. Is Mrs. Mark around? Ask her. She'll know.
She's not around. I apologize.
Okay, fair enough. Buck, your comments about the reported corona numbers got me thinking. I'm a New York nurse and working through all of this and found many people who tested positive go and get retested several times until they get a negative test. Unless there's a central database that show Buck tested 4 times, are they represented as 4 unique positive tests? The numbers are severely inflated because I doubt there's a centralized anything in NYC. Love the show. No, very good question for which I do not have a ready answer. I don't know. It would seem to me, my guess would be that every test is reported as a separate test and not a test tied to the individual. I have to check. I don't know. So I'm just surmising this. I'm theorizing this. But that's certainly a very important, if we're looking at the data, the numbers, the testing all the time, that's something we got to know. Right? That's something that would make a whole lot of sense for us to figure out. Joanna, Buck, big hello from WHP 580 territory. Woo! WHP, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Big shout out. Thank you so much for having us. Our folks at WHP have been listening, and that station has been a great partner for us for 4 years now. So thank you so much for that. I travel to Denver often and have lived near Dallas, both great in their own ways, but I always come back to central or south central Pennsylvania. Get away from the cities, which doesn't take much, and hang out with good people who still have common sense. And Governor Wolf is on his last term, so nowhere to go but up. As an added bonus, if you are feeling homesick, it's beautiful to drive back to NYC or Long Island for producer Mark. Shields high. P.S. Still waiting on Malta. All right, it's happening. It's happening. I promise. I know. When I said I was going to do Malta, it was before I was doing 5 hours of radio a day. So it's in my defense. I mean,
I don't think that's true.
Did I just make a Biden right there? Did I
Yeah,
have a little
you did.
boo-boo?
Uh-huh.
Did I just pull a Biden? I didn't.
You know, the listeners count on me to call you out when you just haven't done the things that you promised.
No, I know you're the audience's ombudsman. So when I'm like, I never said I would do that thing that would be cool that I said, you're like, actually, you did. So got to have somebody who speaks the truth. Yes, it sounds lovely in that part of Pennsylvania, and as I said, WHP, big high five to all of our folks there in South Central Pennsylvania. Thank you so much for listening to the show. Park. Is it Park or Parka? I don't know. When I saw the Buckster on Tucker, I started cracking up. The swoop needs some lovin'. But don't worry, you look like Samson, and we would still love you. By the way, producer Mark's knowledge of American pop culture is amazing for a 20-something. I love his references. Keep it up, guys. You're the best. And I see you as a true replacement for number one after our number one is no longer at the helm ruling the radio waves. Well, Park, thank you so much for writing in. I'm guessing it's probably Parker, but I can't tell. Thank you so much for writing in and the kind words about us. And yeah, no, the swoop, I mean, just so you know, the swoop has been tamed a little bit. The Snow Princess has taken some scissors to the swoop, but I mean, I really got to go after it with a lot. It's going to take a lot to tame this thing. And I gotta do it. I gotta get it happening. Gotta make it happen. Or I can just go producer Mark style and take like a number 2 on the clippers and just shave it down.
They're going to need a weed whacker at some point for you.
That would probably work. Some kind of large mechanical blade might be necessary to tame this thing. I might actually dull those blades. That's how bushy it's getting up top. It's intense. Eric, question for roll call. Living in NYC. I'm losing my mind dealing with some of the liberals, for lack of better word. They are lunatics. I've been losing friends who are calling me every type of liberal insult for saying we should open up. On top of that, with the Obama stuff, which I've been on top of for 3 years, thanks to you and others. Question is, any advice on staying sane and dealing with uneducated friends in this crazy city? Thanks. Whew. Eric, no, I don't have. Listen to this show. That I can tell you. Listen to this show, and other than that, I can't really give you, find good, sane people to at least be in contact with and to talk to and to make you feel like there's other people that see the world the way you do. That's kind of it. That's what I got with you. I don't know. It's tough here in New York right now. There's not a whole lot. Long Island, Strong Island is making it happen. They got some protests, and there's a little bit of stuff going on there. But for us here in Manhattan or in the 5 boroughs, we're in de Blasio land, my friends, and it is not a pretty place. It's not good right now. Laurel, hey, just started listening to yesterday's podcast. I actually disagree with you about those who don't want to open up are purely partisan. Inside the media bubble, totally outside in the real world, I think there are a lot of really power-hungry misfits who actually prefer to be able to use social distance as a rallying cry to do less work while still collecting the same amount. My apartment community in Charlotte is guilty of this. They base their marketing on their great amenities, charge 30% more than average for the area, and have put increasingly more restrictions on what we can do, going beyond North Carolina regulations and even suggesting residents report violators. Beware of the tyranny of middle management customer service. It's probably a good thing to always remember. Stay safe, shields high. Thank you so much for writing in. I appreciate it, and it's very kind of you. No, I don't have time for that. We got a whole bunch more roll calls in the hopper here. We'll save them for Monday. Producer Mark will make a note of that one. Thank you, everybody, for joining us here in the Freedom Hut, as always. Much obliged. Please do check out bucksexton.com over the weekend. Tell one person, do me a little favor, tell one person who's in quarantine or lockdown right now, wants something to do, wants something new, to listen to the Buck Sexton Show on podcast. That's the greatest thing you could do for us here, to get one new listener, each person listening. And we'll be back on Monday. Shields high.